Right guys, hope you're doing well, hope you're all keeping safe. Thanks to everyone who has participated in the poll yesterday about the speculation of what game genre is coming for The Division Heartland. As of me making this video, it's almost at 3,000 votes, so really do appreciate every single person who has gone on there, put their vote in, and obviously left a comment as well. Video on that topic will be coming next week, and if you want to take part in these polls, something that I do frequently, please remember to subscribe. Now today I wanted to talk about why The Division Heartland has to be successful, along with the year 3 content coming to The Division 2, if we want this franchise to succeed, and more importantly, at least for me, if we want to see a next gen only Division 3 at some point in the future. Drop a like below and let's begin. I will be honest with you guys, when I decided on the topic for this video, I wasn't entirely sure what the goal was, or even if there was one. I just started kind of writing down the reasons why these new releases, as in Heartland and year 3 of The Division 2, had to be successful. But I struggled to really know what I'm trying to achieve with this video. I'm writing this part and saying this part in this video, and I still don't know what it is that I'm trying to achieve. But I think the goal is to encourage every single one of you that wants this IP to be successful to understand that I think it's on a very fine line. And if the new stuff is really good, then I think we need to speak about its success. Otherwise, I just can't see it really going any further than that. If it's bad, well, you know, people are going to talk about that anyway. But yeah, that's what I think the goal of this video is. But maybe towards the end of this one, I'll be able to figure out exactly what it is, and we'll come back to this. But let's get into it. So I've been thinking about the recent news dump from Ubisoft, and I do think we're kind of at a crossroads with the Division IP. The news dump that we got from Ubisoft outlined the future of the franchise, with The Division Heartland coming, year 3 content for The Division 2, The Division coming to mobile, and an original Division novel set after the events of The Division 2. And yet, a couple of months ago, Ubimassive announced that Title Update 12 was meant to be the last major update to The Division 2, but due to community support, that's what they say, they had decided to work on another major update for release later this year. I'm finding that actually in a lot of my videos recently, I'm talking about this kind of Title Update 12 stuff, the fact that the devs were looking to actually not go any further. And I think the reason why is because I just don't understand why that was the case, and there's been a lot of mixed signals. It definitely has me, and I presume it has a lot of people confused with the direction this game is going. Now, it's easy to kind of look at the news that we got from Ubisoft recently as signs of investment into the franchise, and that's certainly how I've been taking it. And I even said that in one of my videos recently, that this looks like a great sign of investment, which is obviously very good for the franchise. And I took it that way because I'm mostly a half glass full person, mostly, not always, and it clearly it is an investment. But I also think that based on what has happened over the last kind of 6 months, this franchise is not on the same trajectory as something like Far Cry, for example. Even if Ubisoft have recently called it a tentpole in their portfolio from the Ubisoft earnings that we covered in a video recently. And what I mean is, Far Cry and other IPs under the Ubisoft umbrella that perhaps have a long history with Ubisoft, they have years and years of plans. You know, with I think Far Cry 7 or 6 is coming out this year. They've probably already got 8 and maybe even 9 in development. Certainly they have those planned out, and that kind of makes sense because these games, you know, they're not new IPs. They have a pretty dedicated audience that always play those games, and they guarantee a certain amount of revenue every single year. Obviously, they always want to grow on that revenue, and that's why they make these new games every year. And every year it does feel like something like Far Cry. I think Assassin's Creed most recently, I think that broke a few records for the Assassin's Creed genre. They're always trying to make those games better and bring in more of an audience, but they can always rely on a certain amount of that audience sticking around with that game and creating revenue and profit for them every single year. And that's why they've been, you know, a flagpole of Ubisoft for so long. The Division hasn't done that. In fact, whilst the Division brand is still profitable for Ubisoft, and you've only got to look at earnings reports and players that are involved to know that it's still profitable. The Division 2 did not perform to their expectations, although I will say that most of the time when it comes to shareholders and stuff like that, their expectations are usually wildly excessive, but still didn't come to their expectations, which is probably why it was due to be canned last year. Now, I'm pretty confident Ubisoft decided to invest in the Division IP short term, with no plans for anything after what's been announced, and how they perform is going to determine the future of the franchise. Now, you could say, well, yeah, I mean, that's obvious. They're not going to keep investing in something that doesn't bring results. And that's correct, which is why the Division Heartland and Year 3 of the Division 2, it has to perform well. It has to perform well. Otherwise, I just don't see a future for this genre. I think Ubisoft have this IP on a very short lead at the moment. With that in mind then, if you want there to be a Division 3 or kind of any further extensions to the franchise, then I think we have to be vocal if Year 3 and or Heartland is a success. Now, I know if it's a failure, people are going to talk about it, and that's obviously bad, but most of the time when something's successful, you don't really talk about it. When something goes well, you don't really recognize it and you're not vocal about that being a success. But I think we kind of have to be here, although the numbers will speak for itself. I actually think Year 3 isn't such a big deal as Heartland, because Year 3 is going to service the same audience it has been servicing since the Division 2 launched. A very devout audience, but a small one. With Heartland being a free-to-play game under the Division IP, this has the potential to bring in and retain a huge audience if done correctly. And I think it's important that I emphasize the word retain there, because I think with it being free-to-play, I think it's obvious that it's going to bring in a big audience. It's just whether they can keep that audience for a long period of time, which will decide the future. If that can be done, though, if they can retain an audience, then I guarantee you we will see a Division 3. If not, well, I don't really see a way forward after that point if it all flops. The Division brought in a huge audience initially, the Division 1, and then kind of tailed off pretty quickly. The Division 2 was popular at launch. It got really good reviews from critics, but not to the same level as the Division. And then again, it tailed off quickly. I'm not sure what the numbers are like now, but I think in the Division 2's defence, I do think the numbers might be higher at this point compared to the Division. But I could be completely wrong, that it could be the opposite, and that would further emphasise my point that if you take both of these examples of the Division franchise and you add on top of that a failed Heartland game, I see no incentive for Ubisoft to create a Division 3 from a business perspective. And, you could say, well, maybe from a fan service perspective that they should consider that. But let's be honest, guys, Ubisoft are a business and they're going to give some fan service within a game. But for a new launch, they're not going to launch a game based on fan service. They're going to launch a game based on what the revenue is like and what profits they are anticipating. And I think if you've got two Division games that have seen a decline year on year, plus a failed Heartland game, I just see no hope for the future of the franchise. Now, if Heartland does well, then it's likely there's going to be likely a huge portion of that audience that would at least consider or at least be interested in purchasing a Division 3, even if it's not in the same game genre, giving it another chance almost. And that's all Ubisoft will need to make the Division 3. Now, the franchise is going to be decided in the next year or so. And I hope the devs can pull it off, because let's not forget, there's not a lot that we can do aside from play the games. If the devs do a bad job, then they're gonna know about it, and the numbers are going to reflect that. So it's not really up to us to do anything. It's obviously up to the devs to do their job. I do kind of think that this is the last chance, and the future will be decided on how these games are met within the community and the wider audience. So all I'll say, guys, and this goes back to the beginning where I said I'm not really sure what the goal of this video is that if this game is successful, or you think is successful, if you're playing it, you're like, do you know what, this is amazing, this is the best survival game I've ever played, or battle royale game, whatever it's going to be, then I think we have to be vocal, and we have to say so, either in videos, forums, whatever. We have to be vocal about that. We maybe have to talk to other people and say, look, you know, maybe you had a bad experience before, but you should come and play this because it's free, etc. And we should encourage people to play it. And that way, you know, we build it up to a point where we may be able to get a Division 3 if that's what you want. I know that's what I want, so I will definitely be vocal about it if it is good. With that said, if it's bad, then people are going to talk bad about it anyway. That's just the way it is. Some people are going to talk bad about it, even if it is a good game, because that's what some people like to do. I don't really get that, but that's some people for you. But that's it, guys. That's it for today's video. Sorry for the kind of ramble at the end, but hopefully you enjoyed this one. If you did, drop a like down below. Hope you all have a good weekend. And until next week, Epico.